who's great. All due respect. He's not better than Coop. 2021 NBA Draft in the books. And man, what a night it was. It was definitely difficult and a little bit weird here. It really started, obviously people saw the top three being the top three for the past season. But the draft really started at 4. Barnes, that was a bit of a surprise. Scotty Barnes was a bit of a surprise at number 4. You're seeing a lot of talk of Jalen Suggs and Kuminga, and they go with Barnes. So that was kind of like the first, and then so you keep going down. Orlando, they get another guard here, which is kind of, I don't know if they just went best player available or what happened, but, you already have Fultz and you have Cole Anthony there and R.J. Hampton. R.J. Hampton is more of a 2, but you still have Fultz and you still have, so it's kind of like, do you want to crowd this up? But I guess Anthony's also kind of more of a, he can handle the ball, but, he scores so much and he's such a kind of ferocious scorer. I guess you can put him in that tweener area. He doesn't really have the size of a 2, but yeah, so I guess Orlando just went with the best player there. And they get Wagner a couple picks later. But yeah, Kuminga goes to Golden State. I really like his game from the G League and stuff like that. You got Giddey over there. He goes to OKC. That was a bit of a surprise to see Giddey go that high, especially with Kuminga still on the board. Wagner goes number 8, like I said. Mitchell goes in the top 10. A lot of people are kind of wondering, they called him the most talented player in the draft, the best player in the draft that a lot of people were overthinking on just because of his size and stuff like that. And he doesn't slip too far out. He doesn't go to 11, 12 and slip out of the lottery. He goes in the top 10. So, good for Mitchell right there. I reacted to him before the draft. I still probably will just edit that and put that up anyways. But, he goes to a situation with Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox over there in Sacramento. And Buddy Hield, question mark, if Buddy Hield doesn't get traded again. But yeah, so that's what Sacramento's dealing with. They're building up a little something over there in Sac, but yeah, that's what they have there. And I just heard the door. That's why I was looking like, what in the world? New Orleans to get Zaire Williams. Zaire. Oh, no. He's going to Memphis. Excuse me. I had to get that right. Zaire Williams is going to Memphis with Ja Morant and those boys. Nice, long, athletic player who can score the ball with the best of them. Obviously, if you guys have seen the Sierra Canyon Dog, which brings us to B.J. Boston, who slips all the way to 51. Wow, and it's going to L.A. Something that someone brought up and that was just a very interesting point. He's going back to L.A. Obviously, someone asked his assistant coach at Kentucky, is he over it now? The situation that happened in April with, witnessing in front of his eyes after signing with his teammate and one of his closest friends at the time, Terrence Clark, witnessing his friend and his buddy pass right in front of his eyes on the highways in L.A. to now go to L.A. and have to play in L.A. and see those same, streets and roads and drive, and that's a lot of trauma. So I think that aspect of it, we're talking about Simone Biles and Liz Cambage, Kyrie Irving, Naomi Osaka with the mental health kind of generation that we're in of realizing mental health, destigmatizing. Excuse me, it's late. It's late when I'm recording this. I didn't wait till the morning. I recorded it tonight. But the destigmatization of, I think that's a word, of mental health, with this, it'll just be very interesting to see how he kind of deals with that going through those same streets and everything like that in LA. But that was definitely a surprise to see him fall that far. And I know he was already probably down because of his buddy, you know what I'm saying? So another guy who fell was Jared Butler, who's going to Memphis as well. These are 2 good picks for them, man. Memphis has them a solid draft. Memphis had them a solid draft for Jared Butler, a guy who probably should have gone in the first round, top 25, top 20 talent. He had the heart condition issue and was approved right before the draft once again. So he was someone who slid to where he was projected to go last year before he decided to withdraw his name from the draft and return to Baylor for another year, which turned out to be a great decision because he still went to the league and he won himself a national championship on a college level. So shouts out to Jared Butler over there, who is a Swish affiliate for sure. James Bouknight, we talked about him being mocked to Charlotte. They already have Malik Monk out there. I think that's a nice little backcourt combination right there with Devontae Graham and LaMelo, of course. And, Monk, he's kind of in and out the lineup. And so is LaMelo, so LaMelo himself. So it's just nice to get another backcourt piece right there in Charlotte. Josh Primo, he was another surprise pick right here, number 12. San Antonio, you're kind of looking like, what? With some of the guys still on the board. Indiana does the same thing with Chris Durute. Excuse me, I haven't studied each and every single one of the 2021 class. I'm not as plugged in with this class as I was with 2020 because unfortunately there wasn't a 8-month gap between the end of the regular season and the draft this time, or just a 4-month gap between any type of basketball at all. So I apologize on that for not doing my due diligence. Moses Moody finally goes at 14. So he slips past. So that's what I'm saying when I'm looking at these couple picks and I'm like, what? Okay. And, like when you're looking at the Cooper pick that we're going to talk about in a second, I'm going to try not to jump too far ahead, but I might just, when I'm looking at some of these guys, I'm like, dang, these guys got picked over Coop. And then the Zags, you got the Zag pick right there, 15 to DC. That was a pick where like, okay, this makes a little more sense. And then my guy, Sigun, goes at number 16 to Houston. Oh, that gets traded to Houston? Houston had them a draft too then. Ooh. Houston has Sigun, J-Gup, and Jalen Green, Unicorn. Houston looking kind of good. I ain't going to hold you. With John Wall at the 1, KPJ in the mix as well. Houston, we might have some cooking. Okay. Yeah, I like that. Houston. I like what Houston did. I like what Memphis did. Obviously, I like what Atlanta did. Let me see. OKC, they get Trey Mann. Okay, hopefully they don't trade SGA because why would you do that? His name was in those rumors, and so was Cam Reddish's. So those were two names people are like, why would you trade those guys? Neither one of them got traded tonight. Jaylen Johnson is a guy who falls. He was projected to go top 10, and he falls all the way to 20 to the Hawks. Hawks, could it be a risk or whatever because you don't know what you're really getting with Jaylen Johnson with his short season at Duke last season? What do you have to lose? It's the 20th pick, and in Atlanta you have a pretty stacked team the way it is, especially if they bring back John Collins, which Adrian Wojnarowski reported for ESPN. He was pretty confident Atlanta would be able to agree to terms with John Collins. So, I mean, especially with John Collins, they don't really need anybody else. Like, they needed a backup point guard. They still need a secondary playmaker, which they probably addressed here in the second round, which we're about to get to. But as far as the first round, like anybody else, like the best player available in the first round, it's all kind of just gravy at this point for Atlanta. I mean, they could use probably a little more depth in the front court with the 4 and the 5 because at the 5 you have Clint Capella starting, Onyeka Okongwu as the backup. Then after that, it's kind of bare. You don't go really 3 deep over there. And then at the 4 spot, you have John Collins, who's a question mark to return. Danilo Gallinari, who's 80 years old. And, how much does he have left in the tank? Solomon Hill, are the Hawks going to bring him back? He's a great locker room guy, but are they going to bring him back just because of his lack of productivity on the court in the postseason and, just as far as doing the things that you can see on a stat sheet? I know he does all the hustle work and dirty work and stuff like that. So, 4 and 5 are the biggest question marks for the Hawks. And, backup point guard, secondary playmaker for Trae Young. so Trae Young can get some breaks. That's why I was really a big proponent of Trae Mann falling to the Hawks potentially just to be a second Trae Young when Trae Young was out the game. But they still got him with this man, Coop. Oh my gosh, that was a great pick. But yeah, so anyways, like I was saying, K Jones fell a little bit to 19. He got traded to Charlotte. Charlotte with who did they get earlier that I was just talking about? Book Night. Charlotte got Book Night and Kai Jones. That's not bad. And you already know how Charlotte's looking in the front court with Washington and Bridges. So those guys are already set in the front court. For the most part, they have the young promising talent, but this is just another piece for them. It's kind of like with Atlanta when they already had Reddish and Hunter and stuff like that and Collins in the front court, and they brought over Clint Capella on the trade. Well, Onyeka was kind of like that gravy, that depth, that young talent doesn't need to rush his way through and can play as well. So, yeah. And then Jaylen Johnson, as I said, I already talked about him. Keon Johnson traded to the Clippers. This was a guy who fell a little bit. He was kind of projected all over the place from the mid to the late first round. So I guess he's kind of in his element. I was a bit surprised that Keon Johnson was the first guy from Tennessee to go. He went ahead of Jaden Springer. So I was a little bit surprised with that. And then you have Isaiah Jackson from Kentucky. I'm not going to lie to you. I know nothing about Isaiah Jackson. I didn't watch enough Kentucky to even tell you about his performance or anything, so I'm not even going to do that to you guys. He got traded to D.C. And then this Osman guy, I've heard of him. Like just in draft preparation and, of course, like seeing him on the boards and everything like that. Once again, he's another guy I don't really know much about for Houston, but Houston, they had those two other picks that I really liked. So anything else from me? Oh, yeah. Jacob and Segun and Jalen Green. So, I mean, anybody else is kind of like, oh, this is cool. If he decides, if Usman or Usman, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sounding like Perk. But if he decides to come to America, I know, like, they have 3 picks coming in, so he might be this draft and stash guy. But, it is what it is. And then, like I said, Jacob is a guy who struggled a little on and off a volume shooter right there in Arizona State, but has just a legendary high school career and name and following behind him. And speaking of that, you got Quentin Grimes, a former McDonald's guy right there, 2018, class of 2018. That is the year that those are my McDonald's kids and stuff like that in Atlanta. And he had himself a pretty good college career as well at Kansas and then at Houston finish up. Bones Highland. Yo, that kid is a bucket. And it's built like me, dude. He's 6'3" and 170. I was like, oh, man. I hope my pops ain't hear that. He'll probably, send me some speech about I should have kept playing. But that was Bones Highland. He's going to Denver. Denver always drafts well. This is not a secret. Brooklyn, Cameron Thomas, he falls. Cameron Thomas was a guy that was like, all right, 15 to 20. He might go to 20, but he's really looking like a mid-range. And he falls all the way to 27. So he was talking up there about how he wanted to prove everybody wrong, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what he was talking about. And he gets a chance. He's a score first guy, score first guard. So he gets a chance to learn, as he's talking about, from 3 of the best to ever do it in this generation: Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and, of course, Kevin Durant. So Jaden Springer goes to Philly. Like I said, I was surprised that he wasn't the first guy from Tennessee off the board, but it is what it is. Philly, very interesting. They have no idea who they have next season. They don't know if they're going to have their starting point guard or what they get in return for their starting point guard in trade. So that'll be very interesting to see what happens. So they get a point guard right there. Deron Sharp, it's a guy that I literally just heard of really today. UNC, I didn't really keep up with them too much. I kept up with them from afar just because of Gio, Garrison Brooks, and stuff like that. But for the most part, I didn't really keep up with them last year. I did hear about this kid, though, today and everything like that before the draft and stuff, just because I have my friend, shout out my boy JT over there in Valley, Alabama, who was telling me about him, that the Hawks were looking at him. So, yeah. That's all I know about him. That added nothing. And then Santi. Santi was the final pick of the first round. Very surprised that it wasn't Jared Butler. But Jared Butler, I thought, got traded to Utah. But this is saying that Jared Butler got traded to Memphis. So, either way, but yeah, we were very surprised that he didn't get traded there. Isaiah Todd, another G League Ignite kid, first pick of the second round. Jeremiah Robinson, of course, great, what I was about to say. Great college veteran, just one of the solid players in college basketball. Jason Preston, I was surprised. He has a great story, as, Bill said when he was picked up. He's kind of well known and stuff because of his story and how well he's played this past season. But still surprised when you look at Coop still on the board and Butler still on the board. So they still don't go at this point. Then you have an overseas pick with Rokas, Herbert Jones, another Alabama. Alabama had 2 picks, bro. That's crazy. On the low. Alabama and Auburn had multiple picks in this. The tide is turning in the SEC with SEC basketball. I'm telling you. You better look now before you get lost. But Miles McBride from West Virginia, they were very hyped for that pick, I remember. JT Dorr, Atlanta boy, goes to Charlotte. That's another good pick for Charlotte. Chicago, they go with Ayo. Ayo's definitely, like he said, I know there's not 37 people in this draft better than I am. And he's right. He gets to stay at home, and he gets to prove why he should have been a top 20 pick. That's another top 20 pick right there. This Utah State center that went to Sacramento, I know absolutely nothing about him. I'm sorry. Number 40, like I said, we already brought up Butler a couple times. Number 41, this was another surprising one with Wisekamp from Iowa going before, once again, Coop. And then you have Isaiah Livers, a pretty solid player. Like they said, that's a good value at 42, and I agree with them. Same thing with Greg Brown over there at Texas, going right next to him. Kessler Edwards, a little more. Okay, you can kind of see that. Okay, now we have an overseas pick to Boston, drafting Stash, presumably. Then Delano. Oh, this one was crazy. 46 and 47. So, you know how we talked about Toronto shaking things up with number 4. Toronto shakes things up with number 4. We're getting Scotty Barnes. Toronto, if you know anything about the NBA, you know, okay, with Toronto, they might give up my boy Pascal Siakam while they have some value out of him and rebuild the whole thing. Also, if you know something about Toronto, they tried to get something out of Lowry because they needed some value off of him before he's just too washed and just, rode off into the sunset. Yeah, et cetera, et cetera. They don't do that at the trade deadline. So you should probably look at, picking up his successor. Of course you have Van Vliet. Van Vliet is doing his thing, but you still need someone to fill in that Kyle Lowry role. You had Coop there. And not once, twice. He was projected to go top 25, top 20. 46 and 47, you have 2 opportunities to get him, and you passed up on him twice. And they get a point guard, David Johnson from Louisville, who's great, all due respect. He's not better than Coop. What are we talking about here? So that brings me up to 48. And if you know anything about me on this channel, I'm well documented in talking about Coop on this channel because he's from Marconi. But the reason why I'm calling him Coop and the reason why I call him Teo Cooper's little brother is because he still went to the fake MHS. Now, the fake MHS, if you're not from Atlanta, it is an institution, a high school institution over there on the hills of Powder Springs, all the way in the country of Mobb County, Georgia. Now, where I went to was the real MHS, which was Marietta High School, which was also in Mobb County, northeast suburb of Atlanta. It's about 20 minutes north of Atlanta. So, yeah, that's where I'm from. That's the high school I went to. It's the real MHS. Alums include Dansby Swanson and De'Erica Hamby went there for a couple years before she transferred over to the other side of the Northwest. No, I got that all wrong. Marietta is Northwest, and then it's late. And then Norcross is Northeast. So when you hear Migos and everybody say North, like the suburbs where Drewski's from, Pootie, Black Charcoal, Ty the Guy, all those guys up there in Gwinnett, those guys are, that's Northeast. Migos and them, Alvin Kamara and stuff like that. So De'Erica, long story short, she finished her high school career in Northeast at Norcross, and she played on the team with Diamond DeShields, and Brandon Goodwin was also there from the Hawks, and Alvin Kamara was also there at the same. They were all in school at the same time. Like Norcross is like just a powerhouse in Atlanta and stuff like that. But yeah. That was the story. We all caught up now. We all caught up good. So I went to the real MHS. So in spirit of that, Coop will always be Coop, or Tay Cooper's little brother to me. So that's what that is. But I'm a big fan of his game. Obviously they have the concerns about his shot. But when you're backing up freaking Trae Young, you just need to be able to have a pulse and to be able to control an offense and run an offense for about 15 minutes for Trae Young. And then in games where you need to step up a little bit more because Trae might be out, or, he might be in foul trouble, or he might just not have it going, because Trae goes through cold streaks too. And with the new rules, he won't be able to just bail himself out so easily, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. He wouldn't be able to bail himself so easily with these new rules and just get it going and get a kind of break the ice at the free throw line and stuff like that next season with the new rules. So Coop and Lou, if they bring back Lou, I don't know if they're going to bring back Lou. They sounded like they wanted to, but it's crowded now. You got Trae Young, like I said, Brandon Goodwin, Norcross alum, Skylar Mays, and Brandon Goodwin. Those are 4 point guards right there. Skylar Mays was on the outside looking in, had some spurts though last season. Former LSU guy. Brandon Goodwin, he's had some spurts the past 2 seasons. He just keeps hanging on. Every time you think he's going to go back down to G League or be a two-way player, he proves you wrong, and he puts on a great performance. And then Lou, every now and again, he had a hot start, then cooled back down. Then it seemed like he ran out of gas at the end of the season, but still came up big in a couple of those performances, specifically against Philly, and bringing the Hawks back from, I guess it was a 25-point deficit in Game 5 and stuff like that. And he also just hit some big shots throughout the postseason because he's Lou. And then Trae is Trae. So, all 4 of those guys, I can't really see them all returning, with Coop being in the picture now. So it's probably I think Skylar's probably going to be a two-way guy, and Goodwin's probably going to go back down to being a two-way guy. But that's just assuming that Coop is going to step up and take that backup job in Vegas and take that backup job in training camp. So, yeah, that's Coop. Value of the draft, best pick of the draft, probably in the second round. BJ Boston goes to LA. We talked about him a little bit. Detroit had them some good picks too. Luka Garza and Cade Cunningham. That's a nice little combination. So I'm liking it. Wiggins falls all the way down to 55. Scotty Lewis falls down to 56. Goes undrafted Trenton Wofford from LSU, Birmingham boy. B-Ham. And, he goes to Portland on the two-way and stuff like that. Mac McClung goes undrafted. Kyrie Walker goes undrafted. The boys from Mississippi State go undrafted. Devontae Shuler goes undrafted. So, it's just it's difficult to get in the NBA, man, for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened tonight. If you're new to the channel, this is the road to 2K subs. I hope that you got a little bit out of a couple of these players. If there was someone you didn't know and I didn't know them either, I apologize. I was trying so bad to get to all these prospects and get really plugged in like I was with 2020. But it just didn't happen. Time didn't really work like that. News kept happening, and I kept covering the news, and that's what happened on this channel. But if you are new to the channel, speaking of the channel, this is the road to 2K subs. We are back, women's basketball. We are back with the usual stuff. I just had to get through the draft stuff really quick. But now we back on schedule. So thank you all for your patience, and I hope you have a great day, great night, and a great morning whenever you're watching this. Take care of yourself.